Welcome to episode 43 of the Stop and Give Me 20 podcast, 20 minutes with some of the world's top fitness professionals. I'm your host, Anthony Rena. You can check out the show notes at stop20podcast.com. Before you do that, go to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe to the show. Leave us a review and a rating. It really helps us out. All right, for today's episode, I have on Michael Ranfone, and he is the founder and president of Ranfone Training Systems, RTS, located in Hamden, Connecticut. For the past decade, he's dedicated himself to improving athletes as a performance coach and a manual therapist. You can check out an episode of Strength Coach TV to find out more about Ranfone Training Systems. He was a 4-year letter winner, served as the captain of his football team during his senior campaign at Union College, where he graduated cum laude with degrees in economics and psychology. He's traveling the world teaching the concepts of functional range conditioning. Mike, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Right.
I always enjoy these moments where we can get down and talk shop.
All right. Well, let's get into it. What is your story? What's that spark to your early fitness lifestyle?
So this is a very interesting question because I don't think I've ever honestly publicly talked about this or the beginnings of my my pursuits in physical prep world. But when I was a senior in high school, I think what I relate to is that overachiever, right? I did everything harder because I was working from a deficit. Like I never felt like I was that smart or that strong or that fast. I just tried to outwork people. So during my senior campaign in high school, I suffered an injury that almost cost me my left leg. And honestly, I don't think many people know this about me. They probably see the scars on my legs, but they don't really know the story. So because of that injury, I was dropped from pretty much every recruiting class and college that I was looking into and I had interest in. And everyone told me that it would be a real long and probably uneventful pursuit to get back to the football field. So being an 18-year-old with no real concept of consequence, I said, oh, yeah, we'll see about that. And it took me 2 years to get back on the football field and really 3 years to actually be somewhat serviceable on the football field. So, which drove my interest in physical prep, physical therapy, and any kind of medicine that would help me perform better. So that was really my personal foundation of getting into the realm of strength and conditioning. I wanted to be able to direct, guide, and help people from the many different deficits that they might be facing, in particular injury recovery. So that's my story.
Was there ever a moment when you were kind of thinking, hey, I want to do maybe physical therapy, like in school?
Yeah, I mean, I went through the gamut of the sports medicine. I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist, a chiropractor. I didn't know if I wanted to do sport coaching. I only knew that I wanted to help people, influence in a positive manner. And it wasn't until like my junior or senior year, and don't forget this is like 16, 17 years ago, that strength and conditioning became an emerging field. And then I found that this is something, because I feel as though that I really made myself. I regained my sense of self, working in the weight room. So I found that this could be a possible profession for me that was actually getting some notoriety and becoming kind of on the forefront of sports performance, and the physical prep world became an actual thing that I could pursue. So it wasn't until really my junior or senior year where I took a serious look at it. And unfortunately, my school didn't have anything that would fall under that domain. So I finished out my time at Union and finished with economics and psychology as my degrees. But those things certainly have helped me in my ventures. So I ended up going to Yale for an internship. I went back to school for manual therapy, and I tried to consume every amount of reference or resource and continuing ed in the last 15 years that I could get my hands on.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, obviously I know that just from kind of being around you, and now you guys have been over the last couple of years doing a lot of education, and we'll talk more about that in a bit. But So who was your superhero kind of growing up? Was it, somebody in your family? Was it a sports player? Obviously, you were a good student as well as, a great athlete. So who was that person?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious answer is always going to be my parents. But I really didn't have to look for inspiration outside my family. I came from a very blue collar style family. Most of the men were in the military. So there were heroes all around me and people of great character. But the one person that I always try to emulate and look up to was Walter Payton. I mean, I'm unfortunately a Bears fan now, but 20, 25 years ago, it wasn't that bad being a Bears fan, and it was certainly great to be a Walter Payton fan.
Yeah, what was his nickname? Sweetness, right?
Sweetness.
Yeah, he's the man. Very cool. What about now? Anybody out there that you're exposed to a lot of? You're teaching for FRC. You got a lot of education coming in through your door. Who out there is inspiring you? Who out there is doing great things?
I find inspiration in anyone who challenges me. And I think, if we're just staying into the physical prep world, I think Charlie Weingroff is a guy I can't not mention. He's a guy that will tell you exactly his thoughts, whether you ask for them or not, and he won't sugarcoat them, and he will always try to do his best to get you to where you want to be. And I've seen him as a client, as a friend, and I see him now more as a mentor than anything else. And it's just been an invaluable relationship that I've kind of acquired by reaching out to him 5 or 6 years ago now.
Yeah, It's so true with Charlie too. I think you got to kind of get to know him too, because sometimes he could seem like he's being almost like yelling at you or being a jerk, but he's really so passionate, and that's like his passion just comes through in everything he talks about.
And I really think that's what is the most compelling piece about Charlie, is that you don't have to actually like what he says or how he says it, but it's provocative enough to make you ask questions to yourself. And I think that's really, if we're looking at an industry from the industry standpoint, there's not enough of that. There's not enough friction to get to where you want to be. There's not enough struggle to get to where you want to be. People can be internet heroes and gurus and all that shit, but if you don't do it for yourself for the right reasons, I don't really know why you're doing it.
Good stuff. Coach, what about who you want to be a superhero to? Again, you have your RTS, you have your staff, you have people coming in there. You've been doing a lot of continuing education with bringing people in, people like Charlie Weingroff and Derek Hansen into your place. Who are you trying to help with your message?
Well, I mean, outside of my family, I'm absolutely 100% beholden by two groups of people: my employees and my clients. So I feel very strongly that if someone's going to give me their time, their money, their energy to get better, I better be able to deliver on that promise. And though, as I've grown as a business owner, if my staff isn't fully capable of doing it, then I've shot myself in the foot twice. So I try to do my best to educate and enhance the lives of my employees first, because they're the ones really, in contact with the clients. I certainly can't service all my clients by myself anymore. So if I don't do right by my employees first, and then they do right by my clients second, I'm in a lot of trouble from a business standpoint. So I think those are the first two groups of people that I have to consider when I think about who's in my proximity to influence.
Absolutely. And what about kind of the industry now? I mean, you have what is it? I think you have like 4 or 5 coaches there, right? Just like that are working full time, or?
Yeah, we have 6 full time and 3 interns.
Okay. So talk to me about that. The people that are coming in, or the trainers that you've seen kind of come in and out of the industry. Again, you're teaching a lot now and all over the world. Tell me about the profile of the trainers that are coming into the industry and some things that you kind of see that are positive and maybe some negative.
Well, it's really funny to see the evolution of the business. And if you look back 10, 15 years ago, kind of when I got started and in the education space, it was really people looking to exchange information. I think that was the most, the hallmark feature 10, 15 years ago is that like you didn't have these huge or these even boutique-y style conferences. You just had coaches getting together and sharing. And now everything is like, and listen, this is part of my business, so I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but when you have a continuing education unit, or if you have an education circuit, you're basically declaring that you're an expert in something, or, like you have to listen to me because I'm facing the other direction in the room. And I think people kind of relinquish the fact that they have their own skill sets, their own abilities that should just be complementary to the course that they're taking rather than making concessions to the person speaking. So, the most important feature of education is not just teaching someone what to do, but providing enough information for them to ask great questions to get better. And that might be a million different things in a room full of 50 or 100 people. So just giving one message without any leeway for interpretation, I think can be dangerous. And I think we see this right now with like the professional designations, and they're becoming like these cult life, delineations or partitions in the industry. So instead of having more exchange and sharing and the ability to actually push the industry forward and up, we're merely dividing and setting hard lines that don't really exist, except from a commercial model standpoint. And I think that's a little frustrating, from my standpoint at least.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's funny because I think there's so many people, like, for example, we use FMS as an example, functional movement systems. I think,
sure,
that seems to be one that really divides trainers. And, we were talking, Tony Holler, I had him on the Strength Coach podcast recently. He's a legendary strength coach out of Illinois, and he
sure,
or a track coach out of Illinois. And Tony, wrote an article about 10 things that he wishes everybody knew about speed. And Coach Boyle was saying, he always says, everybody always wants to focus on the one piece we disagree. He's like, but I agreed with 9 things that Tony said. I just didn't agree with one. Big deal. So, we keep posting articles on that site, and I think that's where people kind of miss the message.
Without a doubt. And I think if you look at some of the guys on the forefront or at the highest level of our industry, most of them are saying very similar things. And to disregard that because they have 3 different initials after their name than you do is just asinine. And it really doesn't help anyone, especially the young trainer who will then at some point be responsible for the efficacy and effectiveness of the industry itself to make good decisions on. So I think we all, as guys who've been in the business for a while, we're the ones that are going to be responsible for the future, not necessarily the young guys.
Yeah, and I've actually, for my part, I've been trying to do more, because Coach Boyle can certainly have a polarizing effect on certain
Sure.
people as well. And there's certain people that he has, let's say, feuds with, not feuds, but just doesn't like them, or they don't like him. And so they end up not being on my show, just not because he told me to, just because I feel like, it's a weird dynamic, but I'm starting to branch out to try to get more of those different voices because of exactly what we just said. Is there anything you think we can do with, you do a lot of continuing education at RTS. Is there anything that you feel like you can do to set that up when you're providing that education?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. So I'm going to be announcing a couple seminars coming up that I think some people would be like, oh, why is he bringing those people in or that message in? And I think the most important thing is to create as much variability for people to figure out what is going to work for them. So the courses that I have set up are kind of not in the same kind of fraternity as I've drawn from before, and I really think it's because there's this unspoken word about where everyone's homage is. I think everything is good. I think everything has value as long as you can execute on it. If you're not a competent Olympic lifting coach, you probably shouldn't just take a weekend certification for Olympic lifting and then use that with every client. But this also means that I shouldn't be saying shit about Olympic lifting coaches just because I can't do it. So if you really want to critique something, if you really want to be critical of something, go learn take whatever you can from it, see what works from an application standpoint, run it in your model, and then make an informed decision. And then publicly talk about it and put it on Facebook or whatever, you know?
Yeah, because it's so true, because people will, and I think, FMS or SFG or, some of these workshops that people can kind of get really annoyed, or they'll make comments on, but they've never attended the course. I'm sure FRC getting popular now is probably taking a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, so a couple weeks ago, I was with a bunch of guys who are known in the PRI field, and I've known them before that was even a thing. And so we had this great discussion, and we should have filmed it, about like just the differences, but then we came to the commonalities. And I think, as long as you look for those, like there's always going to be ground to like appreciate, acknowledge, and then act accordingly on. Like it shouldn't be polarizing. And I certainly shouldn't not like someone or just vehemently disagree with them just because they think something else than me. So in my efforts in the next year or so, bringing in people that don't necessarily disagree, but I bet if you were looking just from a continuing ed standpoint or a credential standpoint, you'd be like, why would Mike want to bring those guys in? Well, it's because I want to learn. And I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything, because I am beholden to my employees and my clients. So if I'm not doing my best to get better and get people around me better, then I don't deserve to have a business and then say that I'm an educator.
Absolutely. I'll give you a most ridiculous analogy, but I liken that to Amy Winehouse, believe it or not. I'm a huge music guy, and I'm a big blues and jazz person. And when Amy Winehouse first came out, she had that song on Rehab, and I liked it like a lot of people, but I didn't give her a chance because of the media perception around her. She was a weirdo, and she was poppy, and she was on the radio a lot, so I just blew her off, right? And then after she died and I saw the documentary, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I allowed the idiot media to shape my perception of somebody without going back and listening to her first album or finding more out about her. So I feel like it's the same thing.
Yeah, totally, man. I think especially as it pertains to this situation where we're letting certain education thoughts or ideas or credentials get in the way of like listening to people and learning from people and their experiences. Like I think that's the biggest tragedy in all of it.
All right, well, now it's time for the Stop and Give Me 5 segment. 5 rapid fire questions and answers. You ready to go?
Let me just get hydrated. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, well, let's segue the first one in. RTS has been doing some good con ed, and give us 3 tips, because this is not an easy thing to do. 3 tips for putting on workshops and seminars.
I think the first rule is it's not necessarily about you. Like when we're trying to put on a production, and that's really what it is. Like you're the producer of an event, and you have to get people there. Like you want to make sure, and that's why I've designed the courses at my place very differently. It's there's like 25 to 30 people tops. We have pizza parties and we bring in food, and we want people to network and communicate. Like we're really all about the experience, not necessarily the product or even the delivery of that product. It's about the experience that is going to be the attendees going to go through. Because again, this is about like, if there's a microcosm for the industry, it is continuing ed. So if we can't foster or at least encourage like people-to-people skills, I don't really know what we're doing if we're a people-to-people industry. So that's the first thing I think about. And I'm like you, I'm a foodie. I'm like a classical Italian. Everyone eats good, so on and so forth. So we try to make sure that everyone is accommodated to the best of our abilities. So that's the first rule. I think the second, just logistical thing, is know the calendar. Try not to schedule things when other big events are happening. I think we did that only once, but it was definitely impactful in terms of what our numbers looked like. And then the third one, I really try to choose the speakers not only based on what they do and how they do it, but the type of person they are. And I can say 100% of the people that I've had through my doors are all friends of mine now. And when we go through the interviewing process and just like really simple stuff like when we're talking and, I learn a little bit about their life and who they are behind their, online persona, I have a really good feeling of if it's going to be successful. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a financial gain.
Very cool. Love that answer. It's good to know. You can be in any movie. What is it?
Oh, Predator. I mean, I don't know if there's more of an American tough guy. I mean, it had guns, aliens, and chewing tobacco. I mean, I'm sold.
Sleeveless shirts. I mean,
yeah, sleeveless shirts, no rules.
Camouflage.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Bourbon with anybody from the past. Who is it?
Oh, Anthony Renna. It's been too freaking long, man.
There you go. For anybody that doesn't know, Mike and I shared about 5 of them one night, and I'm not sure if either one of us remembers that conversation.
No, 100% no. And I barely remember the morning after, too.
Mike, with degrees in economics and psychology, if you weren't coaching and teaching in this business, what would you be doing?
Geez, I think with some of the things that I like to learn about, it would be in like neuroscience, learning, cognitive development, things of that nature.
Very cool. Give me 3 non-fitness related books you think everybody should read.
Non-fitness books. Okay, I think Drive is one of the best books I've ever read. I probably get to read it maybe once or twice a year now. The author is Daniel Pink, I believe. Drive. Let's see. Warfighting, which was actually given to me by one of my first mentors. And Warfighting is a United States Marine Corps handbook, and it really talks about leadership and how you should treat subordinates, how you should respect them, and how you should appreciate what they're doing. That's something that I used to give to every team that I worked with. I would give a copy to the captain of every team and just ask them to read it before the season got going. So, and it's a short read. It's like 130, 140 pages, but a lot of gems in that. And then the other book, let's see. I mean, I think the book that I always go back to from even my childhood was The Catcher in the Rye. And I know it's probably a little cliche now, but that book stuck with me for years. I thought Holden Caulfield's character I really related to, like trying to call people out being phonies and counterfeits. And a lot of it was not working on himself or myself and just looking in the faults of other people. So even, 25 years ago when I first read that book to now, I think there's so many lessons that I have to appreciate and acknowledge to move forward.
Love it. Mike, 30 seconds. What's a project you're working on that's getting you excited?
Oh, geez. So there's this this seminar that we're going to do. Myself as well as Scott Tribby, who's my director here. We've kind of toiled with the idea of putting something out of our own, like a product or a seminar of our own. So we're finalizing that, and we'll be releasing the dates for the first 2-day seminar in October, I think, of this year. Kyle Dobbs, who's out in Manhattan, is giving us a venue and a nice audience to work with. And it's called Play, Practice, Train. It is a fundamental approach to sound program design and implementation for both the athlete and the adult fitness client. Nice. So it's something that's really is a culmination of everything that we've been working on for the last 10 years. And we're putting very strict kind of qualifiers, but something also that's very tangible and manageable for the end user.
Love it. Cool. Keep us posted on that. We'll get that out there. Mike, last 30 seconds. What's the letter to your younger self? Advice you're gonna give young Mike?
Oh, geez. I had a similar question posed to me a few weeks ago, and the answer was patience. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with others. I think looking back at me, I was a very aggressive, almost, the classic quintessential chip on your shoulder, prove everyone wrong, middle fingers in the air, do it by yourself, you're self-made, whatever, and that will get you nowhere fast in life. Life is really about connectivity and the ability to work with others and influence others, because when you do that, you will be influencing and bettering yourself in in doing so.
Very cool. Well, I love what you're doing up there, and I love that you're starting to branch out to more of you doing the education as well. And you've been on Strength Coach TV, doing this. You're on Mike Robertson's podcast. Hopefully, we'll get you on the Strength Coach podcast soon. But really, really appreciate what you're doing for the industry with everything you're doing at RTS. So thanks for doing this, Mike.
Well, I have to appreciate you and your efforts, man. I mean, it's guys like you that give guys like me an opportunity to talk and a platform to speak on. So, whatever credit you deserve, you're going to get from my end, man. So thank you so much.
All right, awesome. All right, well, that's going to do it for episode 43 of the Stop and Give Me 20 podcast. Thanks again to Michael Ranfone. Make sure to check out all the links to all his stuff at stop20podcast.com. Please subscribe to the show and leave us a review and a rating. My name's Anthony Rena. Thanks so much for stopping by.